Hassan, why does the majority of YouTube and Twitch not like you? I think it's more so the channels that you see. That's just what it is. And it is overwhelming. There's an overwhelming amount. There's like an entire industry designed around never really revealing what your politics are, but actively just like hitting left. And it does have the capacity to cook your algo, because there's so much. There's just so much of that kind of content, and I think that's why you see a lot of people. That's why you see a lot of people entertain this kind of shit, and especially on like the apolitical side of Twitch and the apolitical side of YouTube, like the slop tubers and whatnot. They just constantly do this thing where they are, they're just trying to find whatever they can, trying to grab onto whatever they can and turn into drama. Someone with like an actual political vision. But it's okay. It is what it is. It happens. This is years and years of being presented as like the person that represents liberalism, socialism, communism, the Democratic Party, in the eyes of so many people. And when you're, one of the biggest, unfortunately, this is just always going to happen. It is what it is, especially at a time like, what did you guys think was going to happen? I mean, we talk about how like right-wing the internet is, and how right-wing a lot of male spaces are, right? And obviously, a byproduct of that is going to be an endless faucet of misinformation and an endless line of attack where people where people basically stake out their political positions without actually saying what their political positions are. And it's actually one of the best ways to do it is attack someone who is a representative of like the Democratic Party, liberalism, socialism, communism, all of that, by just being like, focusing on the drama revolving around that sort of shit. I try to stray away from that, from entertaining that shit to the best of my ability, because like I think it does get in the way of trying to do the coverage that I want to do. And if you're constantly on a defensive posture, people are just gonna be like, yeah, dude, you suck. You're always on your fucking drama shit. Fuck you, this is boring. So we just keep pushing. That is what it is. And the best you can expect is, people coming to their own conclusions by actually coming in and watching, instead of just like only getting the Focus On content. And I think for the thousands that see, for every 1,000 person that sees the Focus On content, there's like a couple hundred that actually come in here and see for themselves whether or not this is real. And basically that's how we bring new people into this community. Yeah. But ultimately, just like Donald Trump can't out yap people's pockets hurting, I think a lot of the content creators in this orbit can't actually keep presenting someone like myself as like the primary villain that they have, while the entire world is falling apart. You know what I mean? While Donald Trump is just like destroying everything. So we just keep doing what we do. It's like I see it almost in the same vein as like having to campaign every single day. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. Like I have a positive vision for a better future, and I will continue staying the course and continue talking about how we achieve that no matter what happens. And people that don't like it, instead of addressing it, instead of addressing why that positive vision is bad, they will just continue to clip me out of context, continue to fucking create absolutely ridiculous narratives. And at the end of the day, those who are at least like somewhat charitable or somewhat curious to see what this is about will come in. And, I hate Hassan just to enjoy both sides content. Like, see, this is what I mean. You don't have to time this guy out. Nobody new here, man. Trump is destroying America. Boo-hoo, they clip me. Dave Porkboy, Dave, like, this is what I mean. Like, this guy's in here, right? Like, he is, he's annoyed. He has his own personal perspective, and he's still watching, you know what I mean? And he will continue to watch. And eventually we will arrive at like a reasonable conclusion. Don't call him a fucking loser either. I mean, it is loser behavior, but like, but that's what I mean. There are a lot of people who do that and then eventually go, you know what? I actually do fucking like what this guy is about. Maybe he's not that big of a piece of shit. Now for this guy, I mean, he's probably been in here for a long enough timeline that he should have probably realized at a certain point. But you know, there's a lot of people who just are also trolling. You have to remember, for a lot of people who are like following politics, it's basically just like team sport or drama for them. They don't think about like the material impact of political decisions and only bring up the material impact of like elections and election outcomes, for example, when it comes to like getting an own off, firing off like a quick quippy own on someone who they have designed as their ideological opponent, or potentially someone who they think is a bad person for one reason or another. There are also a lot of people that are incredibly skeptical of everyone because they've been hurt, you know? They've been hurt quite a bit. And for that reason, they just can't get themselves to believe that someone could be honest about their ambition. And it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do, baby. That's why you always will see when big major events are happening and people are actually tuning in to find out what the fuck's going on. And they arrive at like a take that I've had for years, right? For years and years. Doors open. For years and years, they'll be like, oh, extremely rare Hasanabi take, you know? Maybe it's because I've been outside for so long this past week that I am a beacon of positivity. And I have a lot more time and a lot more investment in trying to have like normal conversations with people, even people who disagree with me. Even if people obviously betray that notion, because it's just impossible. It's just totally and utterly impossible to have those sorts of conversations. But in my experience, the best possible way to do it is in person. And that's precisely the reason why I go on things like CrookedCon, which brings me to my first story. We have the CrookedCon situation that a lot of people are apparently very mad about, right? And there's this, I didn't know that there was like this much centrist angst and anger towards me in this, towards someone like myself in this space. I didn't even know that there was any emotion in this space whatsoever. But it turns out there is. If you guys recall, I talked about this yesterday. I said, I showed you guys what I was saying as far as like on CrookedCon about what the Democrats could be doing better, what the Democratic leadership could be doing better. Here's a person from Progress Libs, I guess. I don't really know what this is, but ridiculous for Hassan to criticize Democrats for not having a united messaging structure to combat Republican lies when he is one of the biggest peddlers of anti-Democrat propaganda in the country, which is pretty funny. I do think that that's hilarious because the left will yell at me because they'll say I am sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party. And then the centrists are like, you're not unconditionally loyal to the Democratic Party. And I want a competent anti-fascist response to what I see as like growing fascist forces in this country, because I recognize that this is ultimately going to destroy everything, right? And it's unimaginably violent. And I think a lot of these people just don't either have the mental capacity to understand that or think in ways of like online drama where they have, you know, like someone who they are a fan of, right? Like a content creator who they're a fan of, that they just advance their petty vindictive agendas over. And they simply just use, it seems like they simply just use the platform of politics as a way to advance that. Some of your biggest obs are libbed up Dems. What are you talking about? Yeah, except those are the libbed up Dems that are on Twitter. Those are the libbed up Dems that are on YouTube, right? They're not actually the real fucking world liberal voter base of the party. So I said, you're smoking crack. And to be honest, this was not, the nicest response, because I had time. And to which she responded with, "Your words, not mine." She used that famous 18-second clip. Now, you guys already know. You've seen this clip many times over. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. I'm obviously talking about Israel-Palestine. So
Democrats, if they were in charge right now, would be doing 100% the exact same thing, 1-to-1. Make no fucking mistake. Anyone who tries to tell you that Kamala Harris will be different is a fucking delusional moron. Do not listen to them.
yeah, and it's like that's a perfectly clipped. That is obviously clipped so perfectly, right? Yeah, I only need 100 and it's obvious that like she's probably in here right now, and she's like actively trying to farm this back and forth. And JD Cocherella response says, "This was about Gaza, to be fair." To which her response was, "Even talking about Gaza, my point stands. Trump has completely cut out Palestinian voices from all negotiations and even floated relocation of the entire strip. They follow Lonerbox Destiny, Natalie, and Hutchlaw. I think you're too charitable to suggest they're being genuine in their criticism of you. It's fan behavior." No, I know. That's what I mean. Like, for a lot of these guys, for a lot of these people, they don't actually think about like the real world implications or the politics of it all. Because my criticism of Kamala Harris in her lackluster approach, in her failure of an approach to dealing with this major issue, Gaza, the genocide that was taking place in Gaza, that a lot of people were angry about, turned into an abject failure for the campaign, right? So I was right on that front. And what's also very frustrating about this stuff is that, like, I constantly want the Democrats to actually be a fighter party, right? A party that fights back against the Republicans, where they they don't do that, and then they lose. They lean into right-wing forces and they fucking lose. And it's very frustrating to see people constantly bastardize that message and try to do shitty analysis in general, because this is the shitty analysis that makes Dems lose, right? Like that's what's frustrating. Like, you can't just like, just as I tell leftists, Marxist, Leninist, vanguardists, like, you have to meet people where they're at. Like, you have to organize around the existing material conditions, rather than close your eyes and imagine a world where everyone has this revolutionary potential, or everyone actually has class consciousness and a socialist revolution is imminent. Like, you have to realize you have to go where the masses are. The same goes for liberals as well, who ironically enough are actually firmly committed to at least like mass politics, because liberalism is mass politics. That's where a lot of people are. That's how they self-identify. And yet what's frustrating to me is that, like, they are unable to see the reality. They're unable to see the reality. They're unable to look at what the base is saying. They have this like incredibly smug attitude. They have this incredibly smug attitude over the stupidity of the base of voters, where they're like, no, they don't understand. If they knew any better, they would just vote on harm reduction. It's like, okay, well, you can't assume that every voter is going to make the harm reduction. Every voter is going to go along with a harm reduction argument. It's very clear that, like, lying is a very effective tool, for example. Like, you have to think about these things if you truly understand the dangers of Donald Trump, as I did, right? Anyway, so all this stuff is, all this stuff is stupid. And then there's always like attacking the Hassan cult is ambitious. Like, oh yeah, you guys are such fucking brave warriors, right? You're such brave warriors for attacking the Hassan cult. Anyway, so there was someone who actually, that clip is also famously cropped, not to show like what I'm talking about. Like, there's a reason why it's zoomed in, right? You got duped. Hassan was talking about bipartisan American support for defending Israel and attacking Iran. Maybe you should ask yourself why this context, a clearly visible tweet about Israel and Iran that Hassan was talking about, is cropped out.
Anti-war championing that was coming from dumbass Republicans. I fucking told you that it was all bullshit over and over again. And make no mistake when I say this. Democrats would do this exact same thing. Democrats maybe won't do the same, like, song and dance in the way that Donald Trump does. They wouldn't go about it the same way, but they would do the exact same thing. Democrats, if they were in charge right now, would be doing 100% the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so interesting about it, right? Because like you see this and you go, ooh, this is fantastic. I will clip this. I will shorten it. I will actually make sure that the tweet is not visible either, so that people don't even accidentally arrive at the context. And if you're doing that and you find yourself like in a position where you're against the Republican Party, okay, if you're anti-Republican, but you spend all of your efforts and all of your energy trying to do fucking oppo stuff like this against like a left voice in the country, you're failing to see the forest for the trees. Your focus is unimaginably narrow. Okay? That's what the issue is. You're not only is your focus unimaginably narrow, like you're trying to win like minor battles on the internet, and the most you do is piss off a bunch of liberals and I guess negatively polarize a bunch of people in your audience to turn around and think that I'm like a hostile figure to the Democratic Party or whatever the anti right-wing Republican position is in this country. And it's very stupid. It's very stupid to do that because like you get nothing out of this. Like, it's not like I'm going away, right? And it's not like the Democrats in charge think of me in that same way anyway. They see me as a person that like, got a bunch of stuff right. They see me as a person that got a bunch of stuff right about the election. And the reason why they think that is because I went to them and I talked to them. I talked to them in the lead up to the fucking campaign. I talked to them before the election cycle. I talked to them after the fucking election cycle. I continuously am trying to move this country in a more positive direction, in a left flank direction for the Democrats, both on the electability front, but also because I think that is good politics and good policy. You getting hate is all they want. For them, this is sufficient. Yeah, well, my point is they're gonna clip this and be like, what? And ignore any person that replies to them with proof. I can literally see how they operate in real time. I know, but I guess like if these guys, my point is if these guys spent this energy on like Nazis, on Republicans in general, if they spent a fraction of the energy they spent on someone like myself on the actual opposition, it would probably be a little bit more productive because they don't fucking like how Nazi infested the website is, right? Nobody likes it. Like, we all align on that. We all align on that issue where like, we don't like the right. So it just blows my fucking mind that there are still so many people that spend every waking moment looking at this unlimited faucet of misinformation coming from the right, this unlimited, this incredibly toxic space that they have been able to dominate, especially on Twitter. And then there's obviously the impact that Twitter has on places like Reddit and places like TikTok and places like, Twitch even and YouTube and everywhere else. And it blows my fucking mind that these guys would be like, we hate that shit too, but honestly, we hate you more. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I literally don't understand it. And that's part of the reason why I barely ever talk about these guys. Okay? Not because like, oh, when I talk about them, I highlight them and I platform them, and then, my haters will then coalesce around them and it gives them a platform, and that's precisely why they're usually doing these kinds of lines of attack. But the major reason as to why I don't do this is because I think it's unproductive in general. Like, I think it's far more important to fight the conservative forces in this country, to fight the reactionary forces in this country, both within the Republican Party and outside of the Republican Party. Okay? That's it. That is the major reason as to why I don't do it. And that's the reason why I don't even like hit the ACP. You know what I mean? Like, for me, if someone is anti-capitalist, I do not see them as a major threat. I don't even see them as like a major mover and shaker in this country's politics. So there is no reason to battle with them at all. As long as people are fighting the Republicans, or as long as people are doing their very best to improve the material conditions of the working class, as long as people are trying to save the lives of Palestinians and things like that, you know, there are redeemable qualities in every single person, and I will try to find them no matter what. But it is kind of crazy that there are people who are just so invested in this narrative. And I don't know. I don't understand how you can spend every waking moment like this, especially at a time like this. But anyway, this guy said, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but for all intents and purposes, Hassan was basically right. From a geopolitical military wonk perspective, the Trump administration has been nothing short of disastrous everywhere except MENA. But realistically, domestically, Kamala's White House would have been virtually indistinguishable from a Trump White House. Well, that's not quite true. Technically, there would have been higher rates of deportation, drawing significantly less attention. Oh yeah, the part that I'm going to get in trouble for pointing out, I can't really put this politely. Kamala is just another reptile politician who's generally detached from the live realities of people everywhere. In Afghanistan, there was a proposal that would have gotten girls back into schools on a modified but workable curriculum. The Taliban's leadership was actually on board with it. Yes, I know it might surprise everyone, but the White House's assistance was required to get that proposal into the end zone. For the plan to succeed, the U.S. needed to shut its lips and not say anything to make it look like this was a proposal the Taliban had come up with and just quietly help with the procurement of educational materials. The effort was passed over to the White House, and since it's a relatively low priority thing, that fell into the bailiwick of the office of the vice president at the time. That was one Kamala Harris. So the plan snaked its way into the office of the VP, where it immediately died an ignoble death solely because Kamala staffers concluded she'll never go for it because she wouldn't be able to take credit. Okay? It's crazy that this guy thinks that's a hot take, by the way, and it's not true. And the irony is, like, I wasn't even talking about like all of the things that a Kamala Harris presidency would represent in terms of being identical to Donald Trump. There's never been a moment where I've said that Kamala Harris would be identical to Donald Trump on every issue. And that's what's so frustrating about it, because I don't hate when people hate me. But if you're going to hate me and you're going to disagree with me, you have to disagree with the actual positions that I hold. And what's so frustrating is people never do that. They just instantly go, I don't give a fuck what your position is. I'm just going to lie about what your positions are. And that's what's so frustrating to me, someone who, you know, spends every fucking waking moment openly communicating my desires, openly talking about like what my opinions are. And it's unimaginably frustrating to have to deal with that shit, because there are so many people out there who are like-minded people, right? So many people out there who are like-minded people, who are good people, who are honest people, who are working class people, who just fucking, you know, just tune into this kind of shit every now and then and only see a clip like this that is completely ridiculous and antithetical to my fucking worldview. And they make up their minds and they go, this guy's a fucking villain. This guy's deeply unserious. This guy's a piece of shit. And I don't like that. Right? I hate that. I think it's very, very frustrating, because like why the fuck are you doing that to me? Isn't there bigger fish to fry? I think you were outside of New York City long enough to see that these people don't exist outside of Reddit and Twitter. Yes, but we do live in the online world, right? We do live in an increasingly more online world. Thank you, Ugopnik, for the raid. Hope you had a good stream, brother. We do live in an increasingly online world, and like this does have the capacity to impact people's opinions, and it shuts off like new valves that I could tap into in terms of new audiences very effectively, because they just think that I'm like right wing. You know, if they're like liberals, they think I'm like a pro-Trump, you know, and it causes them to not actually dip their toes into my commentary and potentially see that we are all like-minded. That we are all fighting the same battle. And it's, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that like, oh, if you hate me, then, you know, you will never accomplish anything. Like, if, for example, I'll give you this, the greatest example I will give you is this, with Zohran Mamdani, right? A lot of people initially fucking hated Zohran Mamdani, but then he won the Democratic primary. He became the Democrat. He had this awesome campaign, and those very same people who hated him slowly but surely turned into Zohran Mamdani, and they liked him, right? Now there's this weird situation where like a lot of the liberals who were initially resistant to Zohran Mamdani, who represents very similar politics to someone like myself, are now big fans of him. So they have to like in their minds make up this alternative reality where like, oh no, Hassan is bad, but Zohran is good. Like, Hassan is actually an evil villain, but Zohran is actually a really fucking cool guy, and we like him and we love him. For me, I'm happy with that. I'll take that. As long as they're locked in, as long as they're actually still going out and door knocking for someone like Zoran, as long as they are still, as long as they're still engaging in politics in a positive way, I don't give a shit if you hate me, right? It's fine. It's fine. It's good. But you also have to address those inconsistencies in your own mind, because I think the reason why you have to address those inconsistencies in your mind is because it causes you to make the wrong decisions when it comes to politics. You know, I even said that to because if you're easily duped, easily tricked about me being like an anti-Semitic terrorist, okay? If in your mind you're like, oh, dude, Hassan is an anti-Semitic terrorist, like he's really fucked up, but then you're like, but I love Zoran, then there is still something worrisome there, because the same lines of attack were launched against him in the same exact way. You know what I mean? And that's like, I worry that the next time a campaign comes around and they're not as like overwhelmingly charismatic like Zoran, who doesn't step on any fucking landmines whatsoever, you are going to find yourself duped by the same exact like malicious forces that present them as bad. And I don't want that, right? So you have to create some semblance of consistency in your mind. Like you have to have a ideological vision, an ideological project that you are, you're moving in the direction of. Like, this is what I mean. There was this guy, where was it? There was this guy who was like, I responded. I was talking about Zoran Mamdani. He's never done a single anti-Semitic thing. He's gone above and beyond to prove that he will be a mayor for all New Yorkers. At some point, you have to admit this is racist hysteria about a Muslim mayor who has the majority position on Israel, right? He says, Zoran hasn't, but you definitely have. I said, all right, man, as long as you're pro Zoran, I'll take that W, right? Yeah, Zoran is a good plan, and I've only heard bad things about Cuomo. So yeah, if I could have voted, I would have voted for Zoran, but we'll see how he does and judge him like everyone else. Stop using variations of the R slur ironically. What? What do you mean? Is it because I'm saying like hysteria or insane? What? Yeah, I hope people, I hope people fucking lock in is my point. You don't have to love me. You don't have to like me. But, spend your time wisely, right? Lock in. Like, recognize that there are far more consequential villains right now. Like, please, for the sake of your loved ones, for the sake of that you care about, for the sake of things that you actually care about, I hope that you can, I hope that you can lock in, like I said. Candidates who refuse to disown Hassan Piker have a 100% win rate. That's true. I think a lot of people don't. I think that a lot of people also don't understand that I often will straight up let bygones be bygones, or even advance the interests of the Democratic Party, even if it's a person that I actually despise, like Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. I hate them, but I've been writing for them, right, throughout this shutdown, because they are trying to preserve the ACA subsidies. I'm not even a fan of the ACA subsidy structure that exists. I hate it. I think it's an inefficient, bloated system. I want Medicare for all. And the ACA subsidies are a perfect example of why the system is bloated and why the system is completely broken, right? It's just we keep applying Band-Aids over and over and over again. We keep applying Band-Aids over and over again with the hopes that, somewhere along the line, things will be fine, I guess. We'll just keep kicking the can down the road.
And I think when Republicans run the...
Yeah, and this is basically a conversation that I was having with Ro Khanna at the DNC, specifically about immigrants and how we need to counter message against the Republicans on the lies and combat the lies that the Republicans were engaging in. Another thing that I was absolutely fucking right on. Like, I wish that they would have done that. I wish that they would have actually done that. But in terms of healthcare, like, remember, ACA subsidies is a Band-Aid solution on a fucking gunshot wound, on a gaping wound, right? Your arm is cut off and we're just trying to fucking slam a Band-Aid on there. And the Republicans are trying to rip that Band-Aid off. But in the interim, it's good for that Band-Aid solution to exist, because I don't want 10 million plus Americans to be ripped away from their healthcare coverage because their premiums tripled. Okay? So if the Democrats are actually pushing back and they're fighting and they're using healthcare as a major driving force as to why they're fighting back against the Republicans, then I'm going to be on board with what they're doing. And I will give them that grace. I will give them that charity in spite of the reality that I disagree with them on many other issues. And this is something that I wish more centrists would do as well. Not that it matters, because I do think that a lot of liberals that are actually within the party infrastructure, a lot of liberals who are actually voters of the Democratic Party, they don't have such rugged approaches. They don't have such hardline, edged approaches to politics in general. But there are a lot of people who just like spend every waking moment doing shit like this, and I think it's like incredibly stupid. It's very narrow-minded. It's very narrow-focused at a time when I guess we all have to lock in a little bit more, right? Like, we got to lock in, folks. That's all I'm saying. We got to fucking lock in. This goes for my audience as well. If you find yourself like getting really angry at like a centrist or something and you want to fucking yell at them, you want to shit on them, think like, is this the best use of my time? I'm not saying don't like gently correct misinformation if you see it out there. That's fine. But like, remember, always try to be as gracious as possible to people who could possibly be aligned with your worldview that you could bring in to your side. You know? What is this? I'm trying to lock in, but you got to stop disparaging no-life nerds that never go out. Some of us still have brains and empathy. What do you mean, dude? That's crazy. That's funny. You're ridiculous. This is my major gripe. Guy who self-reports as a fucking no-life nerd who's a shut-in. Like, I'm not yelling at you, man. Don't worry. We need those. I was thinking about this. We need that. Because the right wing has the right flank in any race is always going to have moneyed interest backing them. We saw this with Cuomo versus Zoran, right? And what that moneyed interest does is constantly muddy the waters, do everything in its power to basically vilify and ritualistically humiliate the party that is representing some kind of change in the affirmative, some kind of positive change in the left flank direction, in the leftist direction. And this even happens with like centrist Dems versus, you know, far-right Republicans, right? Like when they're going into battle, this also takes place. There is a lot of disparaging going on. And if you are especially someone who's coming outside of the party infrastructure that exists, like Zoran Mamdani, there is only one method out there where you can overcome the faucet of unlimited attack ads, and that is grassroots, right? That's just real people power. Door knockers, people who are spreading the word in person, because it is incredibly powerful to be able to talk to a human being in the real world and say, this is my guy and everything you've heard about him is a fucking lie. Trust me on this, right? And I think we could do that. We could do something similar to that on the internet as well. So what I'm trying to saying is we do need the shut-ins, you know? We do need the agoraphobes. We do need the people who are extremely online to basically reverse the network of disparaging left flank candidates, but then, harness that power against right wing candidates. You know, shut-ins rise up. Shut-ins rise up. That's my point. Like the agoraphobics rise up, shut-ins rise up, because the reality of the matter is like, the reason why there is even like a Groyper army in air quotes is because this is an extremely online movement, as I talked about quite a bit. So this is a multi-front war, and it's a multi-front approach. And of course, you can play a role as well. You can play a role in combating the misinformation. You can play a role in actually doing what gets done to someone like myself with people who are like constantly in the fucking chat, sitting around, waiting for the opportune moment to clip me out of context to actually present my worldview as the exact opposite of what it is, right? And the reality of the matter is the right is such a target-rich environment that you don't even need to clip them out of context. You can clip them in context and people will fucking see it for themselves. The problem is we don't actually place a lot of emphasis on what the fuck they're saying. So they get a lot of bandwidth and a lot of leeway. And their audiences, right-wing audiences and reactionary forces, are much more forgiving in general as well. There's not too much like ideological delineation happening on the right. And they're just like singularly focused on white supremacist ideology for the most part. So they can always just like stay the course. But in order to make sure that you can decouple centrists and people who are self-identified as centrists or self-identified as apolitical from people who present themselves as from content creators who present themselves as centrist or apolitical, when in fact they are actually opening up the floodgates of far-right reactionary neo-Nazi politics, you should be able to do that to them as well. So yes, I am not disparaging the agoraphobics. I am not disparaging the shut-ins. I love my shut-ins, okay? And they play a formative role in this battle. But once again, my question is, like, if you are one of those guys, for example, and you spend every waking moment in this chat trying to find something to clip out of context to, like, make me seem like I'm right wing or whatever, right? And it's maybe you see some limited success and it makes you feel good. Don't you think that there are more consequential villains out there, more important forces to combat? People who are directly opposed to your worldview, people who are directly opposed to your existence? Go use that fucking energy on them. You know? Go use that energy on them. And at which point you will, people say, no. Okay. All right. I mean, sure. Okay. If you think I'm your biggest villain, when, you know, my agenda is making sure that you get healthcare, my agenda is making sure that we put as many politicians in positions of power that they will actively and genuinely fight to make sure that every single American has healthcare, make sure that every single American has affordable housing, make sure that every single American city and rural town gets the necessary help they deserve, make sure that every single American that is of the working class has better benefits and more autonomy in the workplace. If you think that, like, that, those are my, you know, fundamental values, those are the things that I'm fighting for. If you think that that presents me as your enemy, unless you're literally a fucking billionaire or a millionaire, you know, a multi-millionaire, like a very powerful corporate entity, and you think that, like, that worldview that I'm presenting to you is, like, dangerous and damaging, you have a lot to think about. Because, like, if you are, you know, if you are actually, you know, Bill Smokes Crackman, if you are actually Michael Bloomberg, if you are actually Larry Ellison, then that's fine. It's understandable that you would see someone like myself as a op, right? But if you're just a regular dude who's fucking working a shitty dead-end job and has no prospects for a better future for themselves, like, and you think that I am your op, I am your number one enemy, you know, you're not locking in. They don't. You get more clicks for them. That's also not true. If we could just, like, turn the faucet of hyper scrutiny in the direction of, like, some of these right-wing forces, I think more people would be like, this is gross. What do you think of the people asking you to take a break because of your overuse and exposure on the online political space? Some see it as an example of patriarchy within the left, for example. I have no idea what that means, but I'm not taking a fucking break.